We're doing it live
with your mother.
I'm doing it live because I am live here from the Xtreme Studios in Xtreme Palace, just west of Orlando, Florida. I already screwed that up. And of course, I have from the Great Midwest RDV. Happy 80 degrees, sir. And I have here the young 20-something from Central Florida down by the mouse you don't want to mess with called Disney. His name is Professor Pixel. And tonight, of course, is our Halloween preview. And what does that mean here on Xtreme Movie Show? It means that we cover some movies of different types, horror films that we want to see. We came up a couple years ago with the idea there's no such thing as a horror comedy, and we have something called the Meg test. That's how these things evolve on their own. But what we really want to do is kind of see what you're interested in as a listener to the Xtreme Movie Show, types of movies for us to do it, because it's our favorite time of the year. We love doing these things here, and if we get some sort of consensus on some of these films that we haven't reviewed before, whether it's suggestions that the three of us have or you guys have, well, we just try to crowdsource that and see what we come up with. RDB, you and I have been doing this for a couple of years now. We've done this in a few other areas too, especially the Extreme Classics, and all three of us have done some TV shows and all that. I know that we all may not have seen everything we're going to do, and some of we do, but we're just going to go around the horn one at a time and say what our movies are in no particular order as people come in and all that. So I'm going to start off to you, sir, and say, what on your list of films did you think you might want to cover this month?
Well, this goes back to my childhood. Actually, more when I was my teens. This is when Pixel wasn't. I don't think he was even alive yet when this movie came out. He wasn't. I guess it's 1992. I'm going back to a movie that stars Anne Palliard, Robert Loggia, Don Rickles. This is called Innocent Blood.
Did you say Don Rickles, sir?
Yeah, Don Rickles is in this.
Innocent Blood. Give it to me.
Innocent Blood, but basically about this girl. She's a vampire, but she doesn't go around just killing random people. Instead, she kills bad guys. She feeds on that, and of course, she meets this guy. He doesn't know she's a vampire, and to kind of bond, have a kind of a romance start building. But of course, Don Rickles plays a gangster, I guess, and wants to take advantage of her, and he wants to make himself a vampire, so he could be the best gangster, and undead.
Don Rickles, vampire gangster. You're serious?
You're serious. Actually, Don Rickles is in there. I mean, he's not the main bad guy. He's actually it's Robert Loggia.
Okay.
But it's in the mean streets of Pittsburgh.
Well, I've never seen it. Pixel, I assume you haven't seen it either.
Oh, I have no idea what we're talking about.
Okay,
Pixel's like, who's Don Rickles?
I know who Don Rickles is.
Well, Don Rickles is a famous comic, very sharp, known for roasting the Rat Pack, and he's been around, and he's played a serious role here and there too, so I'm sure he can pull it off. So I wasn't sure, RDV, if this is a comedy or not, or what, because when we say horror, we don't mean comedy.
It is. It's a slash comedy slash drama.
So it's not a scary movie.
No, it's not. Well, it's not really scary.
Okay.
I mean, there is horror elements in it, but it's good. But it has a lot of comedy in it as well too. Like a dark comedy.
And that's Innocent Blood. All right.
Yeah.
Hey, Pixel, I'm going to go to you. You got some on your list that you're thinking you might be interested in watching. Give us one of them and tell us why.
Well, this first one is a You know how we went through the trilogy. You sadly had to finish it without me. I understand. But of the Karnsteins, well, this one is another adaptation based off of Camilla, the novel in which that trilogy is based upon. It stars Christopher Lee from 1964, and it is called Crypt of the Vampire, also known as Terror in the Crypt, and also by an Italian name that I'm not going to even try to pronounce. But basically, the synopsis is Count Karnstein sends for a doctor because he believes his daughter is possessed by a dead ancestor. And that's... Yeah, I think it's going to be a new take. Well, not a new.
Honestly, I was hoping it was going to be Crips versus Bloods, where Christopher Lee is Dracula leading a gang in Los Angeles.
Well,
awesome.
It's not the later Dracula movies where I tell you he is Dracula in a disco in the mean streets of Liverpool or London or wherever the hell it is. So yeah, because really the whole idea of lesbian vampires is obviously a big theme since we did the Karnstein trilogy, which seem to be pretty popular, but it's not really about the any gratuitousness as far as sex or any of that kind of stuff that we can lowbrow with. It's more the idea of it, because really what it comes down to with horror, it's almost like two different ways that you have this. You either have the lesbian same-sex attraction sort of dynamic that goes on because of Sheridan Le Fanu, and then you have the other one, which is more of the, was it Lady Bathory, that would bathe in the blood of virgins type thing. It's like these female vampires go one of two ways. Either that, or you get the male version of Dracula that has changed obviously from these giant tall guys like in the 70s, Anthony, what's his name, who did it in 79 or whatever, the guy that was in the Ninth Gate. And then in the 90s they turned into 150-pound pale emo guys. I mean, it's just the way Dracula's been portrayed from men is different over the years, and with women it's been a little different as well.
I'm confused. I thought you said I thought they're lesbian vampires. Now they go both ways.
Anyway, yes, because bisexualism is a theme when it comes to that stuff.
Doesn't exist today.
Well, so Princess, we're talking, but we had a joke backstage a while ago about doing the Karnstein trilogy, because I said lesbian vampires, and Pixel, being the young 20-something here from Central Florida, was like, "What are you talking about?" Because they don't make those kind of movies today.
Pixel identifies as lesbian. That's why he wanted to watch.
So
yes, I do.
That's why
I'm a lesbian.
Did them being Hammer films. But the idea of tonight, just for everybody popping in now, is that these are not necessarily movies we're going to cover. It's just ones that we've each come up with on a list, and depending on the ones you guys think might sound interesting or come up with, we try to make that list and do that. So on Tuesday nights and Sundays for the next 4 or 5 weeks until Halloween's here, we try to take those movies and the highest priority ones and try to get those all knocked out too. So that's just kind of where we're at. It's not really a big deal, but I'm gonna go a little different for a pick of mine. It's one that I've been meaning to watch for a long time. I think I might have seen it. It's got Donald Sutherland in it, called Don't Look Now. And it's a movie about a couple that have a tragedy with a child of theirs, and they're in Venice. And it's kind of like, how do you deal with a major loss in your adult life? And it's known for supposedly a graphic sex scene in there, which maybe they really did or not. I don't really care about all that, but what's supposed to be interesting about it to me is the way Venice is portrayed in it, because Venice is a really creepy city if you've ever been there. It can look sexy and exotic, but it's very, very old and smells, and it's old and it's just creepy. It really is. And it's one of the fewer movies that back then in the 70s they started going kind of like out of time. Like they'd show something kind of like a few minutes in the future and then the back, where now that's like commonplace. Everybody does it. But back then it was a little bit unique, and it's hailed as a great film, and I don't really remember it that well, but it's one I'd always thought, well, that might be an interesting thing to review here on the Xtreme Movie Show, called Don't Look Now. Got a lot of rave reviews at the time, but it could be one of those films that the critics like, and the average moviegoer is like, yeah, I don't see it. I don't really know, but it's a possibility there. I know it's been on our short list some years back. I assume you guys haven't seen it.
I haven't heard of it.
No.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's just how it is. So, yeah, let me check the chat here before moving on to you, RDV, and all that. Yeah, so Don Rickles with that. Yeah, okay, so again, we don't have any particular films in order, like, oh, that's my number one film I want to see. It's just a thought, so we can talk about seeing it. Who's next?
I believe it's my turn again.
Yes.
I want to go back to 1976 Christopher Lee movie, Dracula and Son.
What? Dracula and Son?
Yeah, Dracula and Son.
Is this Hammer?
I don't know. It's on Tubi. Doesn't say if it's Hammer or not. But it's director is Eduardo Milano. But
another French comedy horror film.
Yes. Angry villagers driving away from their castle, Transylvania. Dracula and his son head abroad.
Dracula and his son Toby.
It's actually, I think it's Christoph. But anyway, they end up falling in love with the same mortal girl. So there's kind of a competition between them two.
Dad, stop fucking my girlfriend. I can't.
I don't.
You?
I think it might have to be him. He's gets a little hysterical when he has at his cheer wine.
I have not heard of this.
Cheer wine or him?
No, this horrible sounding movie.
French comedy horror. Yeah, it came out in 1976.
It's French, so it can't be that funny.
No, it's free on Tubi.
Gotcha.
And there's nothing wrong with the French movies.
Hey, you know what? This is why we bring these things up. I mean, we did do a Dead Alive, right? I mean, that was the comedy one for a while ago with Treat Williams in it. So,
well,
I certainly have no objections. It better be really bad. It can't.
I was
just
gonna
be in the
say if you go out, if anyone's going on praising Dracula Undead with Leslie Nielsen, and they're crapping on other comedy movies that are just as equally cringe,
I'll give you that. I will. So, man,
and it actually has a 2-disc Blu-ray.
Well,
it was his final. The reason I picked it because it's final appearance as Dracula.
Okay, there's reasons, right?
And the fact that Christopher Lee speaks fluent French.
He speaks a lot of languages. He's a bit of a stud.
So it was great to see him in his last role as Dracula. I was like, I've never seen it before. It's a little comedy. I watched a little bit on Tubi. It actually looks kind of cool.
Okay, all right, Dracula and Son.
Plus the girl that they both like is incredibly hot. So that's always a selling point for me.
Well, it depends on how deep they get into that relationship.
Well, I don't know how. Well, either way, it's gonna suck.
Well, Pixel, go ahead.
More lesbians, more vampires. It's called Daughters of Darkness from 1971. I'm pretty sure it's a French film, actually, but it's not a comedy.
No, it's not. I've heard of this one.
Yes, I was sure you would have, but I'm interested in giving it a shot. I think this one is more notable out of the ones we've probably done. So Daughters of Darkness, that is my recommendation for this Halloween season.
Daughters of Darkness, I'm looking at who, and this is a European film too, so that's interesting because, a lot of people think we automatically are going to be doing American films, and it's not necessarily true at all, but no, this one I've definitely is on a lot of lists that's out there. I cannot recall it off the top of my head. You definitely had, with relaxing the standards in the 60s and 70s, an explosion of exploitation type films and other things here of what you could and couldn't do, and that's where I think Hammer Horror had a tough time dealing with that, even because they went the adult way, again, sexing things up in their way, but limited by standards. And by the 70s or 80s, it's like, okay, we made all this great gothic stuff. Now, how can we modernize it? And I don't think that they did a very good job of it, obviously. But this is the one, this is the one where it's more the serious kind of like, Virgin's Blood kind of stuff or whatever.
Let's do it.
Earlier this year, I'm trying to think of the name, Infinity Pool, where I called that particular Skarsgård a low T Skarsgård, because the woman in there just totally owns him, and she's the same woman who was in Pearl and a few other movies, X, I think. She did such a great job in it. That is by Cronenberg. However, that's the son of the guy of the film that we're going to talk about here in a moment, called Rabid, David Cronenberg. And Rabid, well, let me back up and talk about Cronenberg for a minute. We haven't really done a lot of his, and he's a body horror guy. And what does that mean? Well, something about your body and biology, things don't work out well. And Cronenberg, I believe, is Canadian, and for him, a lot of Canadian stuff, whether it's SCTV, other shows, they would get grants from the government, and they could make certain things and all that. And I think that's how we got to start. So some of his stuff is someone like Toronto, maybe Montreal, and all that. So it's always interesting to see it. I remember one of the first movies I saw of him was some movie where like people are like in this nice little condo complex, but then like weird stuff happens and something like breaks out. It's like an infestation, and it just gets kind of gonzo at the end. And I liked it, but he was known, Cronenberg, as the guy that I believe redid The Fly in like 1985, 86. So I've always been interested in looking more deep into his more darker stuff, I guess, not necessarily popular like The Fly. I mean, come on, The Fly is like G-rated, right? But Rabbids is one that is like, it's got Marilyn Chambers for your old school people in it. It's a movie that I don't know if I saw. It was a very popular movie at the time, but...
The name of this one again?
Rabid. Like, when you go rabid because you got rabies or something?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so bad things are going to happen to your body. You're going to turn into something, whatever like that. I'm just like, damn it, I need to see more Cronenberg in my life. And what better way to kind of think about it too is something like this. So basically, even though there's a lot of like, how do you say this? The zombie stuff's been so hot for what, 10, 15 years now, maybe closer to 20 really on a grand scale. He was doing stuff like this way back in the day. And it just seemed to be a bit more of a serious, darker type of disgusting type film, which I'm all in favor of. And so I thought, this might be interesting. Got to look up some Cronenberg. Like I say, we don't do enough Cronenberg on here, and it's a perfect time for it. But I'd be interested. I think the movie that I saw was Shivers. And this one, I think, is the one he did after that. So he'd made a name of himself a little bit too. But yeah, low budget. The effects and all that. It's not cute stuff, if you know what I'm saying. Like we talk about how The Walking Dead, the zombies look incredible, but they're not scary at all. So this kind of stuff's probably it's kind of more to my liking too. Every now and then I want to see disgusting things.
Yeah, at the time they weren't. Before watching the new spinoff show, now the zombies, you can't, when you go try to kill them, you can't because they have acid coming out of their blood. So they actually upgrade the zombies in the spinoff. Yeah. Those are really cool. When it says the Daryl Dixon show went to France right now, it's actually interesting because it's like now it's actually a challenge. You can't just go stab them in the neck, in the head. The zombies, they touch you, they burn you.
Right.
Yeah, so that's cool. And yeah, so anyway, all right. I've never heard of this, but he kept saying Cronenberg. I kept thinking Corona and Burger.
Corona burger.
Corona burger.
I was like, burger soaked in Corona.
My Corona.
Don't say Pixel. Yeah. So what year did it come out? This when you're talking about
1977, I think.
77.
So it looks like we're all just focusing in the 70s right now.
There's a lot of good horror in the 70s, and that's when things got modernized. You can talk about Rosemary's Baby in the late 60s and everything else there, The Omen.
I've got at least about 2 modern ones on my list. The other ones are all right around that here, though, because
I will not.
Right. I was so personally, me, Pixel, and I'll let you do. I just want to say that my list was built off of Tubi. It was available on there because I don't want to search for anything else. Try to find another website. Tubi, it's right there. It's convenient. I can just click and play.
No, I just wanted to say that I'm not watching Videodrome again. No, you can't pay me. Not again.
Oh, is that the one with the TV?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a one-time sit through. It's like Season of the Witch, Halloween.
Halloween 3, I love it.
You only watch it once, and so it's like, no. Because I do not like anything like cockroaches or any of that weird stuff. No bugs. Nope. Or people get their face peeled off.
Yeah, it does look like the 70s, but still, yeah. We have not done Captain Kronos, Vampire Hunter. We have not, because that, of course, predates Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter, which is an incredible film in and of itself.
There's a sequel or something like that. So it takes place in the Civil War. It's another Vampire Hunter thing.
One can only hope it would be Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter Part 2.
That's not, though.
Civil War. Maybe we'll call it that. I don't know.
No, it's...
Okay, who's next?
Did we skip Pixel?
Oh,
no, Rob this one, right?
Yeah,
Rob went. You were supposed to go. I just wanted to respond to Jim by saying...
Well, no,
it's your turn.
Yeah, I was going to say... I thought you were going to say like you skipped me, but you didn't skip me.
No, I haven't.
All right, so my next one... let's knock out some of the modern ones, okay? Is a Jason Mewes movie. You probably are like, if you don't know who Jason Mewes is, or if you do, some of you are like, oh, I can't stand that guy. But he's Jay from Jay and Silent Bob. Jason Mewes is in a movie called Bitten. Came out in 2009. It's about he plays a paramedic on the night shift. Comes across this woman laying in a trash pile. She's got 2 strange puncture marks on her. But he basically, because she's all covered in blood, she's hysterical. He brings her back to his apartment and lets her stay there, crash her for a while, until she gets her back on her feet. But then she starts acting a little bit weird. Her eyes get really bright blue. Like I said, it's not the best movie, but I like the fact, it's and at least an attempt at a decent movie. When you get to the modern stuff.
This was a Sci-Fi Channel movie, it looks like.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's Jason, yeah. And then, it's, of course, because she's got 2 puncture holes and she's turning into a vampire. He's starting to fall in love with her, vice versa. And he's got to figure out a way how to keep her alive by giving her blood.
Huh. I've never heard that one before.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
a little shop of horrors. Feed me, Seymour.
quit sucking, you angry bitch.
But you're saying all the films you're selecting, you know that they're definitely on Tubi, correct?
Bitten, I don't think it's on Tubi.
Okay.
Look, let me look at my list here. Actually, no, it is on Tubi. Okay, that one is on Tubi.
Interesting. Okay, no, I'm not aware of it. I know who Jason Mewes is, and unfortunately, you reminded me of who he is. So I'll just
Unfortunately,
that's just how these things go, right? So I mean, it's just yeah, you're going for the
he's not the strongest.
Stuff,
He's not the strongest lead, but I can't. I gotta say, a lot of these movies that were like in the 60s and 70s weren't always the best actors.
True.
They weren't always the best stories. So you're kind of we're dealing with the sets looking the best. That's like a lot of Hammer films. It was the set that I thought was actually that would stand out more than performances.
I'm not going to disagree with you on that.
Yeah.
Sometimes those cheap visual thrills are the best, and they can make up for some stuff. Not going to lie, if it looks good, looks sexy, that can help. Doesn't say that it always does, but I will not disagree with you on that. There's a Lucy Liu vampire one too with Robert Forster in it, and I forget the name of it from around the same time. And I keep going, man, I like the opening gambit where they get the high-end prostitute, but the Lucy Liu's involved. Like, damn it! And I just remember the name of it. So
we did do John Carpenter's Vampires.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And actually, you and I have even talked about, but I don't know if we reviewed it, the John Carpenter sequel one that has
John Bovi.
To say it, it's got
John Bon Jovi. Man,
it's not horrible for a C-level film.
No, I actually thought it was really good. I like the second one.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that later. But yeah, all right, Pixel, young 20-something. What's next on your list?
Let's move away from vampires. The year is 1959. Vincent Price is the star of this thrilling, chilling sensation known as The Tingler.
That's got sex toy written all over it.
Vincent Price, the Missourian.
Missouri, indeed. Yes, I want to do The Tingler.
We went from lesbians. Well, he's got lesbian films. Now he's got Tinglers. I'm just curious. What's next?
The Tinglers are for the lesbians.
What is it? A parasite that feeds on fear.
Yes.
Okay. Indeed. Well, there you go.
Strike fear into the heart of man.
Oh boy. Well, I'm going to move us back to vampires because I said I want to look at a lesbian vampire film that I have heard nothing about. And so we mentioned before how there's like Spanish names, Italian names, German, French, British, American, that sort of stuff. Well, I wanted to go for more of like the art house type, and I don't know if it'll be boring or if it'll suck. Because one of the things too that Pixel and I have talked about a little bit was, say, when we did 1991's Dark Shadows revival, the limited TV episode series, is we don't look at it as horror, even though it deals with vampires. It's really gothic. It's a drama in a way. And so I think sometimes these movies, even though they might have a supernatural force in there, if you're going to do ghosts, probably better to go gothic rather than scary. It's probably a preference of mine. I'm not going to, we're not here to debate all those things so much, but there's a French one, and a guy I've always heard his name, Jean Rollin, I think is how you pronounce it. I'm not French, so I don't speak it. But there's one about these two that apparently this movie is really kind of ethereal, as they like to say, very dreamy. So I was kind of intrigued by it, like, oh, is it going to remind me of like, Barnabas coming out of the woods with the smoke machines on 11 saying, consumed by passions I can no longer ignore, and all this super silly stuff. It's called Lips of Blood. And the description of it sounds kind of interesting to me, where I think it's a guy sees like a photo of like a place, and it just kind of makes him feel like he's been there before, and how he may have known a young woman from way back in his younger days or something. So he just gets kind of consumed with the idea of going there and seeing if it's real or not. And I don't really know too much about it, but Roland, as a director, from my understanding, is definitely a bit different than if you get some of the really graphic guys like you would get from Italy. And we've done a couple of those films, not a lot, and we certainly haven't gone hardcore. But it was an artsy fartsy sort of one, and it may suck. I don't really know, but I've always said I got to watch a couple of these French art house type ones just to see how they're different. Again, we've talked Hammer a lot. We've talked American stuff. So we try to, when we're reviewing stuff, we may notice these patterns. I've said I got to involve the French stuff in here because they definitely have their own take when it comes to these sorts of things. And let's be honest, Lips of Blood's a pretty damn cool title. Am I right?
Yeah.
So there you go. Lips of Blood would be my next one.
Nice. All right, mine's gonna be Jackie Chan cameo. I did not realize until now that he's only a cameo in this movie. That's the reason I picked it though. But it's called The Twins Effect, also known as The Vampire Effect in the US version. Came out 2003. It's a Hong Kong martial arts kind of movie. Almost like your what was the one we reviewed last? It was last month with it was a vampire movie where the guy was a blacksmith and gets his arms taken off. It's the one.
Oh,
the hip hop one. The Spike Lee one, or what it was, or I think it was, I don't remember what it was, but anyway, in this movie, basically, the evil vampire Duke sets out to kill and collect the blood of the royal family of evil, basically European vampires. But they flee to Hong Kong, and basically at this time, also a vampire hunter who just lost his his love of his life, his partner, to a band of vampires, ends up betraying the younger, basically the younger sister. And yeah, they basically have it's a whole. It's gonna be one of the. I'm afraid it's gonna be one of those high wire, Catch Tiger, Hidden Dragon, kind of the wire movement films, which I'm not a really big fan of, but I'm always looking forward to seeing some martial arts stuff that we haven't been watched, and this tackles too vampires plus martial arts.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then Jackie Chan's ambulance driver in it.
Well, and there was a little bit of that with some stuff like vampires and crossing over. I know we've been talking a little bit about trying to come up with something as a crossover between what you guys do on the Geek Puppy Show and what we do here on the Extreme Movie Show. And I know that there was a lot of like Alice Cooper, Tales from the Crypt, all these older type of graphic novels, if that was what they were calling back in the 70s, or limited editions. And there's definitely stuff of more serious things that I thought would be kind of interesting because that's where my interests go. And so I distinctly recall like some sort of vampiric kung fu kind of nonsense, which is a sub-genre, but it sounds kind of cool, doesn't it?
Yeah, I was kind of like, when I look at movies, I don't look at the IMDb rating, but the IMDb is like it's a 4 point something. So I'm like, oh, we're in for a treat, And he said, apparently, I was reading up on it though. It's a bit because I don't always take IMDb as being like accurate because a movie they said this movie was a box office smash over in Hong Kong. When it went to the United States, didn't do so well. But that's a lot of movies that that we like because Americans they don't appreciate good martial art movies or other foreign cinema. A lot of them, we just want more Hollywood right now. When Hollywood's on strike, I don't give two shits about Hollywood being on strike. I want more foreign films, which are made better. But
yeah. No, I don't disagree with that.
So that's why I said whenever I see an IMDb rating, I kind of wondered, like, is it, first of all, is it a foreign film or is it a Hollywood film? There's a big difference. So, so I look forward to watching that. Maybe if we watch that, but that's one of my last modern films.
Okay, I might switch to modern here shortly and all that too. Yeah, it's always interesting when these themes come up because we sometimes do that. We don't necessarily schedule, we're going to do this on this day. It just depends on like if a celebrity dies or we went into a Denzel mood there. And then, we went through the Cynthia Rothrock phase for a little bit. And, we go back and forth on all these things. That makes it kind of fun too. So definitely a very fluid type of scheduling situation that we have. And we always default back to, like we say, an 80s based channel, and which of course means martial arts and people beating each other up, that sort of thing. But yeah,
80s martial arts is better than 80s US movies. Sorry.
Yeah. All right, Pixel, you're choosy tonight. I see. Choose another one that may be worth discussing.
So, it's so funny how you chose Lips of Blood. I did not choose Lips of Blood because I saw your list, but Jean Rodin, or however you say his name, my choice was The Shiver of the Vampires, which is his third vampire film. His first one is called, the English title that it defaults to is The Rape of the Vampire, which, yes. The second one is The Nude Vampire. Because these are all, again, these are French films. They're
Shiver Me Timbers, Vampires, number 3.
Shiver of the Vampire, Requiem for a Vampire. Then he has 2 films before going back to vampires in Lips of Blood. And honestly, I'm just incredibly fascinated about how many movies this guy made.
No, he made a ton of them. You're absolutely right. And some of these guys, when they knew the type of film they were going to make, they pounded those things out. Was it Dario Argento, or whether it was Rollin, or was it Franco in Spain? You know, those, they just boom, 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 boom. I mean, it's like, you're absolutely right. So you go, well, of all these films, which of the select 1 or 2 that I should do it? Should I see what people say is their good one, or one that might be interesting to me? So that's the whole thing, you know?
Yeah, like the first one, which, again, that's like the default title that it goes to, The Rape of the Vampire. But that one was intended to be a short, and it's actually 2 short movies put together to make one full movie about a vampire queen. I'm incredibly interested in going through these. And even his ones that aren't about vampires, like the demoniacs, I don't know what they're going for, and the Iron Rose, those sound interesting too. I don't know.
Iron Rose? I was like...
But yeah, the Shiver of the Vampires was my choice for this one. And again, it's lesbian vampires.
Huh. I never knew I wanted Iron Maiden and Guns N' Roses.
It might be time that we just subsection this entire portion off and do it at 6 o'clock.
Well, like I said, content's never an issue as far as finding stuff. It's just, again, you know, when you have to pick and choose, you got to have a standard to make the judgment by. So I'm going to, on my list, just kind of change a little bit, because I was doing some older stuff and you guys are doing the modern. Now I'm going to go a little modern. One movie that I feel as a kid just blew me away. Let me start off by saying this. When I was young, my very first pop crush, I guess, if you want to call it that, would have been from Xanadu. What's her face?
Olivia Newton-John?
Oh my goodness! Oh yeah, because I remember seeing Grease at the drive-in, and she was just everywhere, just gorgeous, beautiful woman. And I kind of liked, although she wasn't on there a lot, on the first couple seasons of the Hardy Boys Nancy Drew TV series, the lady that played Nancy Drew, I thought was very smart. And I always liked these very intelligent, kind of with it, cosmopolitan women that I would see it. And then, of course, when Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid came up, and we had Rachel Ward in it, you and I covered a slasher movie, RDV, that she was in, if you remember. It was one of her first films. So as a kid, as I'm turning to be a teenager, I'm starting to see all these women, and some I like, some that I don't like. But one that I was absolutely intrigued by stars in this next movie, and she was so exotic looking to me, and I had no idea what the hell was going on. It was boring. People weren't talking. And now that I'm older, I'm like, oh, I get what's going on. This one isn't. It's a remake of an older film, but it has to do with sexual awakening, and it's called Cat People, starring Natasha Kinski in it. Oh my God, this is a hot, steamy movie. I've seen it for a very long time. Bless you, Gesundheit, and all that stuff. But that's one we have not talked about.
Afterwards.
No, I think it was 81, 82, but it's pretty hot. It's pretty erotic. I like it. I think it's a very good adult film. And I don't know if
is this going to listen, sure. Rob? Is this how we find out about your secret furry thing? That's a little much.
What?
RDV gets what I'm talking about, right?
Well, he's talking about vampires. Where does furries come into?
Anyway,
you say cat people?
Yes.
Oh,
Cat People. Natasha Kinski. Look it up, bro. I think it's a good one because it's really like an adult thing. It's got themes to it. It's not.
I just remember of the mother and the son were giant cats in this other movie.
Yeah, I think you're thinking of something else.
Yeah, but there's I think the one you're talking. I was half paying attention. I was reading the chat. The one you're talking about is the brother and sister.
Kind of, sort of, yeah.
Yeah, with the cat.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I know what you're about. I think I've seen part of it, just never watched it all the way through.
You and I had talked a while back about, because we were doing our werewolf movies where we did Wolfen, and we did the Halloween. We did a whole bunch of them. But yeah, this is one that, like, okay, I guess we can.
He's very possessive of her. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I could say, now I remember the whole plot. I could say it, but I want to spoil it for Pixel in case he hasn't seen it. So
Yeah, Pixel, you don't want to read about it, you just want to watch it.
Okay.
Seriously, it's one of those kind of movies. Yeah.
Nice.
Panthers were like a thing in the 80s. People don't want to admit that. They weren't just with L Cool J, like Walking with the Panther on that album of his and all that. Now, this is it's a cool movie, I think. Cat People. All right. That would be you next, RDV, correct?
Yes, we're going to 1974. This is straight up horror. This is Jack Palance, Simon Ward, Nigel Davenport, Fiona Lewis, and Penelope Horner, and Pamela Brown. It's available on Tubi right now. This is Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Jack Palance is Dracula. With, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Jack Palance is Dracula. Nigel Davenport is Abraham Van Helsing. I was like, dude, I'm usually not for like Bram Stoker Dracula movies. The other one, I think the other one has Gary Oldman, which I don't really care for that one. I watched it and I was like, eh. But I actually wanted to see this because it's Jack freaking Palance, man, playing Dracula. This is it's free on Tubi. I look forward to this, man, because it's great to see somebody other than Gary Oldman and Christopher Lee as Dracula for once.
I need to say it. I need to say it. Bram Stoker's Dracula is a Dan Curtis production.
You just look it up?
No, I knew exactly what you were talking about with Jack Palance.
Yeah.
Yes. That's the reason why I chose it, because it's Dan Curtis too. Because you guys always have, this is not a Dan Curtis production. This time it is.
This time it is a Dan Curtis production.
I said I look forward to it, man. It's freaking Jack Palance. I've never seen him playing a Dracula type before. I was trying to find pirates and Draculas, pirates and vampires together in a movie. The only one exists is the Voyage of Demeter.
Yeah, that's true.
Why do you guys deny me of pirates and vampires in a single movie? I want vampire pirates. I want pirates going up against vampires. I want this. See, Hong Kong, you failed me.
the funny thing is, this one especially is heavily Dan Curtisized, if you want to say, because it features a lot about a lost love and reincarnation, which is exactly what he did in Dark Shadows before this, and he does it again in Dark Shadows after it, and he has a story that he likes, and I cannot say that I blame him because he does it well, son of a bitch. One of the few people that can get away with doing the same thing over and over again and be like, okay, take me.
It's not only is it free on Tubi. If you have the Roku channel, you can watch it free. Probably the ads there. It's also free on Peacock. So, like I said, it's Dan Curtis. I figured I'd save the best for last. I know you were a Dan Curtis stan over there, Pixel.
My man.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's good. You had Hammer do some anthology type stories, with 3 or 4 of them a couple times, and a few things here and there. Same thing with Dan Curtis, and that was definitely one of them.
Jack Palance, though, I just want that gritty, Jack Palance,
You get it.
Yes.
The poetry guy. I mean, he had a big thing in the 80s where he got popular again.
Hawk the Slayer was the other one. It's had awesome performance in that too as well. If you ever watched that movie, it's also available on Tubi. I would recommend watching the normal version and then watching the riff cover of it.
Yeah, Johnny's mentioned The Night Killer, which is a slasher. I'm like, okay, that's cool. That's on Tubi. Because I don't know that I really have a slasher per se. My next one, actually, it's Pixel. It's your turn. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yes, it's my last choice. And actually,
you got more?
Rounding it out, it's another Dracula. It's the original Dracula, starring Bela Lugosi. It's one that I still, for some reason, have not seen. I should have. It's time to rectify that. So
they don't play it anymore.
No, but we can find it.
I'm just saying it's. So here's the thing with the original Dracula with Bela Lugosi in it. Obviously, Nosferatu was already out and about at that time. A lot of people, including the Salem's Lot TV movie, looks a lot like Nosferatu, and also in the Demeter looks like that. Bela Lugosi, when you played it, it's a very good film. I enjoy it a lot. The Wolfman might be better. There's a Spanish version of it, I think, that has Bela Lugosi in it as well, maybe, and I think it's supposed to be a little bit different and actually better than the original Dracula. But that was like the gold standard forever. That would always be on during the holidays. And if you haven't seen it, it's like, everybody was always familiar with Universal Studios and their horror monsters. And I think we've gotten to the point now, Pixel, in your generation, where unless it's playing at like Halloween Horror Nights here in Central Florida, and you go to it and they're having a special fun house that's dedicated to their IP from 100 years ago, you're not going to necessarily be all that familiar with those things. So you tell me, being the young 20-something here on the channel, do you think a lot of people of your generation honestly know where all these monsters come from, and they were all Universal back from way in the day?
I feel like they definitely know. They may not have seen it. Like, for some reason, I haven't. But they definitely know about it. There's an iconic look for Dracula that will forever be immortalized by Bela Lugosi. Forever. Always. He is the face that you recognize. That's Dracula. Obviously, Christopher Lee, he is known for Dracula too, but Bella's got it before him. And yeah, no. Even if they've never seen it, they know this Dracula.
Okay. All right. I mean, it's, yeah, you always start at the beginning. Sometimes if you don't know where to start, you start somewhere, but eventually you end up going, well, where does it all come from? And if you go from there, then it starts to make sense. And again, talking about, lesbian vampires with Hammer horror, well, we really took a moment to explain why Hammer was doing it, how they went about doing it because of the constraints of the time, and how it was different than the American versions. And of course, that it's based off of some actual literature back in the day. And again, here at the beginning, we talked about the two different paths that vampires seem to go down when it comes to the female perspective. But since it's not a complete lesbian vampire themed evening, I'm going to go with something, again, a little bit different. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go with what some people call an oldie and a goodie. And I got to admit, growing up, I came from the type of family that while I knew about things that would go out on the streets, the mean streets of Pine Hills here, I didn't partake necessarily in drinking and drugs and that heavy duty partying and all that, despite knowing a lot of people that did. And the first time I tried reading H.P. Lovecraft, I went, I don't know what the fuck is going on. And it's weird. Was this guy high? But then when you figure out, like Edgar Allan Poe and everybody else was too, and it's kind of different. As an adult, I've come to almost like the paranoia sense that you would get in H.P. Lovecraft, but everyone always thinks it's hard to put into a movie. There's a movie that came out about 20 or so years ago based off, I think, The Shadow over Innsmouth. It's called Dagon. And without knowing anything about it, some people, I think it's Spanish or Portuguese, it's people are on their boat. It's modern times. And I think they have an accident or something like that. And they end up at this small town or whatever. And like a lot of Lovecraft, you're going to end up not knowing who to trust. The town's in on it. You get that sense of paranoia that you'd get, like, say, from the original Wicker Man and other things that we would start to see that adds to it, a sense of dread, if you will, despite what the ending of it is. And, hints of things back in history and all that, know anything about that can be done up well in a horror movie. And I don't think that it is often. And I appreciate it when you can have a different way of evoking some sort of, old school visceral response at people and all that. And I think Dagon did an okay job at it being what seems to be like a B-level film. But H.P. Lovecraft, we don't really talk about a lot, even though we've done some of his stories. I think we did Color of the Night with Nick Cage. I think that was Lovecraft as well. I don't know how Lovecraftian it was. But Dagon, I remember it being kind of a little bit like and H.P. Lovecraft, everybody would always kind of start and stop his stuff in the 80s, I remember, with movies, because it was, again, it's like a lot of other stuff that's out there in the public domain. You can do it, so why not? But don't know if we'll end up doing it, but I wanted to get some H.P. Lovecraft representation going.
True.
Have you guys heard of this?
No. But now I have.
Okay, well, there you go. All right, I've got definitely a couple more. I could keep going. Pixel, I know you're kind of at your end there a little bit, but
I'm on
how
my
do you feel?
final
Want to
pick.
keep going for a few more?
I'm fine. I'm good. Let's.
You're up.
Well, this was inspired because I originally we were going to grid on. I only did 5 because that's not what we were doing. So, Jim Sorcer brought it up this series, and thank you for that recommendation, because it has Edward James Olmos, but also my favorite from Looker, Albert Finney. Wolfen.
Wolfen is great.
I've never seen it though. I'm looking at the cast. Gregor Hines is in there too as well. Tom Noonan. Man,
I believe we covered that film. I'm going to look that up right now.
We've covered Looker. I've never watched
covered Wolfen. No, we haven't. We've mentioned it, but you're right. We have not covered it. Wolfen is fantastic. It's one of the best movies. But go ahead.
Yeah, like I said, dude, Albert Finney is a New York police investigator following up a series of grisly murders in which the victims seem to be mauled by feral animals. I'm already, dude, New York, Albert Finney, werewolves. Dude, yeah, they basically stumbled against an inner city of native, Americans, led by Edward James Olmos. It's no secret. I've been watching Miami Vice, so every time Edward James Olmos comes on the program, I love the delivery.
That's all he says, right? You're off the case. Rocco Tubbs, you're off the case.
He's just so quiet, and it's Pixel. You have to watch that show, man. It's like one of the best 80s show I've ever seen. Well, I even like it's better than stuff today.
It's incredible, and you and I have talked about doing our own TV thing because you and I usually don't do a lot of TV, calling it Miami Nights, which I think is a tremendous title.
Is that what you guys want? You guys want Miami Nights on this channel?
Yeah, we'll have to do a separate night for that.
I'll have to get my sports coat out and my pink shirt.
Yeah, those were all the rage back in the day. Everybody had them. Let me say this about Wolfen. You and I both love Albert Finney. The few times we've talked about him, I know he's been a lot of the top 10 lists that we did when we started years ago here when we launched the Xtreme Movie Show. Top 10 of this year, that year, whatever.
Yep.
This movie, you could say it's a wolf movie, and it is. But really, they try to modernize it by tying the themes that, of course, when you had your riots in the 60s and 70s, and a lot of your major cities that people lived in for quite some time burned. And of course, the whole thing was this, in the 80s, people moved to the suburbs a lot more. You had the sense of decay and all that. And it's just creepy and atmospheric because you're like, nah, that could never happen. And Orlando is a sleepy town, really, even still back in the 80s, you go, geez, when you've been to a big city, you do believe there are areas you could go to that are completely riddled with drugs, burned down. Cops are never going to go in. There's hardly any people there. You believe it could happen, and it sounds stupid. Wolves in New York City, but I'm telling you, just the shots of it. This is the New York that I grew up seeing on television and getting a feel for with the Twin Towers. They're on bridges on stuff. Wolfen is a fantastic film. It's definitely one of the best werewolf films of all time.
1981 is what they takes place, so you're gonna get a lot of cool stuff. It's just 3 years before Miami Vice.
Yep.
It's probably what launched Edward James Olmos' career.
Yeah, it did. He's not a main character per se. I will tell you that. No. But it's significant, the role that he has, I would say.
He's like the guy on the street. No, he's like the streetwise. He's the informant.
Wolfen has the best, and it sounds like I'm being goofy here saying that. When I close my eyes and I think of the scariest looking wolf thing, the way the wolves are filmed with their eyes and their wolf vision, for lack of a better term, I call it predator vision, but this is what predator kind of reminds of. Still kind of creeps me out a little bit today as an adult. It's done so damn well and effective. And so it's really just about this whole journey into the unknown of New York City and how is it happening. Can anybody believe it? No, they treat it very scientifically. This isn't a movie where you see them all the time. That's the beauty of it.
No, that's the puppet show. Whenever someone says New York City, we all say it all loud.
New York City. Oh, like the
salsa commercial. Yes.
That's El Paso salsa, isn't it?
Blame Eric Breen.
Okay. New York City. I remember that. Yeah.
So it's where I hear somebody on the we say it all the time on the reading. So if I hear somebody say that word in New York City, and I'm out in the wild, or at a shop, I'm like, don't say it. It's like
it's my gut reaction too.
Kind of hard to know. All right, Pixel, do you have one that you've figured out or not?
All I could really suggest, and no, I still consider it. I'd love to do a review of the original Alien. It's one of my favorites, favorite sci-fi movies.
You have seen it, so you consider it sci-fi, or you consider that horror?
Are you sci-fi and horror can coexist?
That's not what I asked.
Oh. I consider it. it's horror. It's horror more than the sci-fi because I love the aesthetic because it's very clearly 80s future, but it's not. It's the science of it isn't the important thing. It's the xenomorph.
Right. I wouldn't disagree with you on that. I think it's a good take. I mean, it's obviously a great film. It's one of the few films that people, when they go, man, it's almost perfect, really.
And then Aliens is just, I like Aliens, but it's very different. It becomes an action.
Yeah, it's an 80s film. It's like Rocky IV.
Oh, well.
I'm gonna go with one that you guys may have heard of. I just got to double check here, make sure we haven't done this one already. But I know when we were talking vampires earlier, people mentioned, hey, the John Carpenter one wasn't that really bad. And I gotta say, I think that one came out before Blade came out, and I just gotta say, John Carpenter had the exploding vampires before anybody. Just putting it out there.
Yeah.
I mean, Blade is still phenomenal to me. I love it, but this one here I'm talking about, of course, is from I think 1987 or 1988. John Carpenter. It's actually we did it last year. It was Prince of Darkness. Yeah, where basically they try to figure out that the devil's kind of coming back and he's in like green goo, and it's kind of weird. And Alice Cooper's in it, but yeah, we did that. So scratch Prince of Darkness since we'll go to
1983. We'll go to My Boyfriend's Back. With a little unknown part from Matthew McConaughey.
Oh wow! No. All right.
I forgot that Philip Seymour Hoffman's in it too. He plays the buddy, Chuck. Rob, you've seen it before, right? My Boyfriend's Back.
Yeah.
There was some gore in it though. The dude gets like here, Pixel. If you've never seen this movie before, I'll just give you the setup. This guy is infatuated with this girl, played by Tracy Lynn, and he runs into her at the gas station, and then he jumps in front of. We're getting basically that gets held up. The gas station held up, and the guy's getting ready to shoot her, the robber, and he jumps away, and takes the bullet. But then he finds out he's a zombie, and throughout the rest of the movie, it's him chilling with Trish, trying to keep the villagers, the people, from trying to attack him, while also he also feed on brains too. And it's like a romance dark comedy like that.
All right, it's time for Warm Bodies, where a teenage girl finds her teenage zombie crush.
Wow, I hear the same in your voice. Actually, you hated Warm Bodies?
It's cheesy stuff.
It's not supposed to be scary. No, it's like World War Z. It's the same thing. It's
World War Z wishes it was scary though.
World War Z could have been more scary if they would have got away from the whole we're gonna run up like ants real fast,
Oh no, that's one of the things about it. That's what made it different from other zombie things, especially at that time.
You know what though? There's one we haven't covered on this channel, and Rob, you know what it is? It's the late guy who played Pee Wee Herman. He was in it at the end.
Pee-wee's Playhouse, the ultimate horror show.
Forgot what his name is, but
Paul Rubens.
Paul Rubens. At the end, it's about the Vampire Slayer. We've never covered that on the channel.
That is true. We talked about that.
Actually, Audible is doing a audio drama with the original cast that's going to follow Spike.
No, we're talking about the actual movie. We're not talking about the TV show.
Yeah, I know. But
so that's not the original cast.
Like
that's the knockoff version of the
movie. You remember last week when we were talking about the Vincent Price movie and Rob kept bringing up the Continental? I'm allowed to bring up Buffy.
I was bringing up what?
The Continental.
Breakfast?
No, I was comparing how Continental sucks, and compared to especially compared to what they were trying to do. So I'll make these weird leaps between two different things in real time.
I know.
Stream of consciousness, that would be James Joyce for you younger people, Pixel, that don't read anymore.
All right. So
that's where it came from. Go ahead.
So I was gonna say to people in the chat, since we're not writing these down in the chat, if you can leave your picks in the comment section below after the stream's done, we'll be able to go over those and choose some movies from there.
I've got two that I wrote down. One was the old one that Princess had mentioned by
Oh, you are
Byzantium.
ringing
Don't know if
okay.
that's her number one, but and I like the idea of Night Killer. I thought that was kind of neat too. So yeah, again, if you guys leave it down here, but just try to put them in order of the ones that are the most important to you, because that's kind of how we'll, get them. I know a lot of these are on TV, but obviously there are alternative methods for us viewing this. And so what we do is we try to come up with a schedule based off of that, because even Tuesday nights, normally we do action or something else, RDV and I will probably do a horror film on that. So if it's something that appeals more to RDV and myself, we'll do that. And then if Pixel and I do something additional, but right now we're doing, of course, Mission Impossible at 6:30, but maybe sometimes we can go on at 6, the original TV show. No, it's been getting pretty good lately.
Jim's pick. He's like, the only film I can think of is Train to Busan. But Korean
That's
Chuck
not a horror
Norris.
movie. Yeah, I mean, come on.
It is. People can tear into the zombies. It's horrific if it happened in real life. That's why I consider it a horror movie. The ones you're talking about are the ones where serial killers watch these, and then that's how they learn how to kill. That's your horror movies. I had a friend who was all into horror movies, and I kept thinking, like, well, he's going to end up killing someone someday. Don't know what happened to him, but I'm pretty sure that's you don't want to desensitize yourself to that stuff.
All right, well, if we all have one more, let's do that, and then we'll call it a night. RDV, you're up.
That was my last pick up of the Vampire Slayer.
Okay.
Because honestly, as Luke Perry and then Paul Rubens just died recently, two late greats, and then Kristen Swanson as Buffy, and then I forgot about that. It is Rutger Hauer as the vampire, the master.
When that came out, that was it was neat. To me, it's totally different than the TV show season 1 of Buffy, which we covered that, I believe, as well.
It's
here.
Very 80s pop. I like
it is. And Christy Swanson was in believe it or not, this was, I think, before Chopping Mall. She was in one called Deadly Friend, which I believe was also by Wes Craven, where the next door neighbor has like a robot, because I hated this thing, but it was a thing in the 80s where they tried introducing robots in the movies. Nobody cares. They're fucking robots. They're not real. That's why nobody likes Westworld. Okay. And that was that was a bit of a bomb, but that was like, I think, her first big thing. And then she got really big when she did that one. And then that other one with, I think, Charlie Sheen, where they're driving around. I forget the name of that one. So yeah, she was pretty hot at the time when that came out, and people liked it. People thought it was a lot of fun. It was kind of cool in a way, and like you said, very 80ish. That's not a bad one at all.
Yeah. Like I said all the way through it. I said the music, the fact, and then also too, it's another high school movie. So you get to see what it's like in high school, like in the 80s. You get to live through Rob's eyes.
The most realistic one would still be Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Yeah.
But a lot of people still like The Breakfast Club, kind of sort of because of the cliquishness of it. John Hughes is sort of interesting with that stuff. But we've done My Bodyguard, which was pretty good. Some was darker ones. And of course, if you're from Florida, you got to go with The Substitute.
Wait, the Sasha Mitchell one?
The first one.
Okay, I was going to say, Sasha Mitchell took over. He was like a robot.
No, we're not doing that. No, Wolfen is a good one. It's very atmospheric. It's a good movie to watch late at night, and you're just kind of chilling.
I love the crime thriller movies, so I'm sure there's a couple other ones we mentioned last year. I have to go back and look them up again, but a lot of those, like I think it was two prisoners on they escaped prison, and they come across, I think it was a vampire or werewolf or something like that. I forgot what it was, but I'll have to look them up. But yeah, definitely looking forward to these, as well. I don't have any other picks for the night. I think we're pretty much done. Pixel.
Yeah, we are. We got plenty of them, and thing is which one of the ones we're going to cover. Yeah, Pixel, you don't have any more?
No, I'm out.
RDV, what do you guys got to plug for all the other stuff Tuesday night?
In 10 minutes, we're going live on Geeky Puppet Show.
What are you covering?
Wow, I was distracted by Elmo over there. But no, we're going to be actually reading 2 books, like we always do every Friday and Sunday on the channel. We're going to have, first one is going to be Amazing Spider-Man number 8 from back in the 1960s. And then following that, we're going to have, the next reading will be JSA number 1 from 1999. So 2 classic stories, one Marvel, one DC, a lot of ham in each one of them, because we're not doing serious readings here. And that's the best thing about our channel, is that we'll show you the old books. If you don't like what we're reading, you can always mute us and read for yourself because we show the whole entire comic. But
while you're reading, they can go along with it if they don't have it, obviously.
they don't have to. Yeah, they don't have to have that. They don't have to have us, on the volume on. If they really want to read themselves, though, But the best part is interacting.
Imagine if they had to have the book and it was just us staring at a screen reading line by line.
No, we don't do that. We show the book. That's all. Yeah.
Our subscriber count would go down.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, our Halloween 2023 preview. I put some of ours in the main picture here. I'll put some down below as well, too. Our first selection will be on Tuesday night. RDV and I will be covering that, and then the three of us will pick one to cover on Sunday as well. 6:30 next week, we've got Mission Impossible episodes 7 and 8 that we're going to be covering. We're doing the original TV show, season 1, all the episodes 2 at a time. And we may go early on some things, too, at 6 o'clock. It just sort of depends on what we feel like doing at the time. But that's definitely our standard. We're looking to add some more to it. So based off your feedback on what you guys are interested in for Halloween, not just lesbian vampires, but other stuff. That's it. It seems like the winner tonight, though, was Wolfen. So, RDV, if you're up for that, we'll plan for Wolfen for Tuesday. Does that sound like a plan?
Sounds good.
All right, sounds good. And I did not check to see if Wolfen is on Tubi. Most of what we've picked either is on Tubi or something, but
Wolfen, I believe, is only available through $2.99 rental. Through Vudo, I think the other one was Amazon Prime.
That's the only way. There's no other way.
Well, the one thing that has come up a little bit, some of our listeners have talked about is we mentioned, of course, Tubi and a few others, and a freeway. And again, you're an adult. If you want to go surfing, the high season, do your own thing. That's your own business. There's a site out there that's free, and I guess I don't know if it's to be thought of as like a public library sort of way for online, but it's called the Internet Archive that has a lot of different things on there. Wolfen is on there right now. I'm staring actually at it. It looks like it actually might even be a somewhat decent print because I know on Tubi you get that, and I know like the Roku channel I think had a few things at one point. Unfortunately, they got rid of TJ Hooker the first 2 seasons because they were on CBS. But there's definitely places you can go to find these things here too. Obviously, again, you know ahead of time what we're going to be doing. Yeah, this is actually a very good print here on and it does not appear to be edited.
Basically, anything that you're looking for, and you're not sure if it's online or not, just type in the name of the title and then type in Internet Archive after in your Google search, and it pops up links.
It's a good film. Really, really good film.
I amassed a giant folder of just Boris Karloff stuff, audio dramas, movies. It's awesome.
All right, Johnny, Princess, everybody else, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for letting other people know that we exist as well and spending your time with us here tonight. We'll be diving into Wolfen on Tuesday, and we'll see what happens on Sunday, but I'm sure it'll be scary.
Sunday will be Smile, Pixel's favorite movie.
All righty then. Have a good night, everybody. Stay Xtreme.
Later, guys. Gotta bounce. I'll see you on Tuesday.
Yeah, have a good one. See you. I will see you. Enjoy. Have a good one.